Ladies, have you ever found yourself in a place where the world seems full of noise, yet you feel so profoundly alone? The kind of solitude that isn't about physical distance, but emotional isolation? The feeling where the connections that once felt so certain now feel as distant as a forgotten dream? Today, let's talk about the powerful story of a woman with no friends. Not the kind of loneliness that's about being single or separated by miles, but the kind of loneliness that stems from disconnection, misunderstanding, or the painful reality of being misunderstood. It's the deep ache of wondering where the true relationships are. The authentic, unguarded connections where vulnerability is safe and trust is mutual. A woman with no friends is not a woman without value. She is a woman who has likely faced pain, who's been let down, who has given and given, but somehow found herself receiving less than what she's given. But here's the truth: solitude is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of rediscovering your worth, your voice, and the power of vulnerability. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. It's commonly viewed as a weakness, something to avoid, something that exposes us to harm. But vulnerability is not about being fragile, it's about being open. It's about showing up in the world as your authentic self, with all your imperfections, fears, and desires laid bare for others to see. And it's in this very openness that the magic of connection happens. Vulnerability is the doorway through which love, trust, and friendship enter our lives. You see, when you are vulnerable, you are essentially inviting others into your heart. You are saying, "Here I am with all that I am. Take me as I am." It's a courageous act, one that requires great strength. It's a willingness to risk rejection, to expose your rawness, and to trust that there are people out there who will see you for who you truly are, not just the mask you wear to protect yourself. Think about it. When was the last time you felt deeply connected to someone? The times when you truly felt seen, heard, and understood weren't those moments when you shared your fears, your hopes, your dreams, and your flaws. Those are the moments when the strongest bonds are formed. It's not the polished, curated version of yourself that builds true connection. It's the real you, the one who doesn't have it all together, but is willing to try, to grow, and to embrace imperfection. Now, vulnerability doesn't mean that you have to share everything with everyone. Not every person is worthy of your heart's deepest truths, and that's perfectly okay. What matters is that you start allowing yourself to be open with the right people, the ones who will hold your heart gently, without judgment. This is the beginning of creating deep, meaningful relationships. But in order to form these bonds, you must first embrace vulnerability as a strength, not a weakness. Being vulnerable isn't just about sharing your deepest secrets. It's about being open enough to let someone see you in your rawness, to see you without the armor of perfection. It's about showing up when you're scared, when you're unsure, when you're not sure how things will turn out. And yet you step forward. You choose connection over isolation, trust over fear. The thing is, vulnerability can be terrifying. It makes us feel exposed, like we're standing in front of the world with no clothes on. But let's reframe this for a moment. Vulnerability is not about showing weakness. It's about having the courage to be human. It's about saying, "I am not perfect, but I am worthy. I have a story to tell. And my story matters." When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you take down the walls that keep you isolated. You allow love and friendship to enter genuine, life-changing connections that will support you through your darkest moments and celebrate with you in your brightest ones. But here's something critical: vulnerability is not a one-time thing. It's a practice. It's a constant choice to show up as your authentic self, to peel back the layers of armor you spent so many years building, and to trust that, in doing so, you'll find the people who will embrace you. Vulnerability is not just about sharing your struggles, it's also about celebrating your victories and being willing to let others witness both your highs and lows. In relationships, vulnerability creates a space where trust can thrive. And trust is the foundation of every meaningful connection, whether it's with a partner, a family member, or a friend. The more you allow yourself to be vulnerable, the more trust you build in your relationships. You start to realize that vulnerability isn't about risking harm, it's about taking a leap of faith that the right people will catch you. The power of vulnerability lies in its ability to create connection. It's through vulnerability that we are able to truly see and be seen, to deeply understand and be understood. It's through vulnerability that we find those rare friendships, the ones that nurture us, the ones where we don't have to pretend to be anything other than who we are. So if you find yourself in a place where you're feeling disconnected, where you feel like a woman with no friends, remember this, it's okay to be vulnerable. In fact, it's the very thing that will bring the right people into your life. Let your vulnerability be the strength that guides you towards real connection. Show up as you are, without the fear of judgment, and trust that the right people will embrace your imperfections, your flaws, and your beauty. And in doing so, you will not just find friends, you will find a tribe, a community of people who see you for exactly who you are and love you for it. This is the power of vulnerability. As a woman, the experience of emotional pain, betrayal, disappointment, rejection, or even the simple feeling of being misunderstood can be incredibly profound. The heart is a sensitive thing. It is not easily healed when it is hurt, and it is often quicker to shield itself than to face the rawness of its own scars. But the challenge here lies in the way we protect ourselves after that hurt, in the way we build walls around our emotions, thinking that we are guarding ourselves from future harm. The truth, however, is that these walls often keep us isolated, not just from the hurt we fear, but from the very connections we crave. These emotional barriers, though built with the intention of protecting our hearts, can become prisons that prevent us from experiencing the fullness of life. The more hurt we experience, the more layers we add, until eventually we forget what it's like to live without those walls. We become so accustomed to guarding ourselves that we no longer know how to open up, to let others in, or to experience the vulnerability that is so vital for real connection. These walls aren't just built by one traumatic experience. It's not just that one person who hurt you, or that one betrayal that left a scar. Often these barriers are formed over time, layered on one by one, an accumulation of past pains, disappointments, fears, and rejections. Each one feels like a reason to protect yourself, to build a higher wall, to pull back further. Perhaps someone let you down, and so you told yourself, I will never trust anyone again. Or maybe a friendship ended badly, leaving you with a sense of shame or loss, and now you find yourself afraid to even try again. What happens when we allow these emotional barriers to take root is that we begin to see the world through a lens of protection rather than possibility. We stop reaching out for fear of being rejected again. We stop allowing ourselves to be seen for fear that we will be misunderstood or hurt. Slowly but surely, we become so insulated in our own emotional fortress that we lose the ability to connect in meaningful ways. We tell ourselves that we are safer alone, but the truth is we are not living our fullest, most authentic lives. You might have convinced yourself that you are fine, that you don't need anyone, that it's easier to just keep everything inside. But deep down, you know that something is missing. You know that these walls are keeping you from the very thing you desire most: connection. Emotional barriers, if not recognized and addressed, will continue to hold us back from experiencing love, friendship, and joy. So how do we begin to recognize these emotional barriers? The first step is to look within. Ask yourself some tough questions. Why do I keep people at arm's length? Why do I not allow myself to trust? Why do I shy away from deep, meaningful connections? What am I afraid of? These questions might bring up feelings of discomfort, but they are necessary. We cannot change what we do not acknowledge. Often, the barriers we create are rooted in old wounds. Maybe you've been hurt in the past by people who were supposed to love you, and now you carry that pain as a shield. Maybe you've been let down by friends who weren't there when you needed them most, and you've convinced yourself that people can't be trusted. But here's the important truth: you cannot heal from past wounds if you refuse to face them. You cannot expect to move forward while clinging to the belief that everyone will hurt you just because someone else did. Recognizing these emotional barriers means taking a deep, honest look at the ways in which you protect yourself. Perhaps you avoid deep conversations, deflect vulnerability with humor, or keep everything light and surface level to avoid getting too close. Maybe you put up a front telling people you're fine when inside you're aching for connection. Maybe you hold on to grudges, unable to forgive because letting go feels like letting down your guard. It's also important to recognize the subtle ways these barriers affect your behavior. Do you find yourself withdrawing from social situations, avoiding phone calls, or not responding to texts from people who genuinely want to connect? Do you push others away when they try to get too close? These are signs that your emotional walls are still in place, blocking the very connections you desire. The next step in recognizing these barriers is to understand that they are not your identity. You are not your walls. You are not your past experiences. Your worth is not determined by the pain you've endured, nor by the walls you've built around your heart. You are worthy of love, of friendship, and of connection. But to experience that, you must first be willing to let go of the belief that vulnerability equals pain. Once you have recognized these emotional barriers, the real work begins dismantling them. And this is not something that happens overnight. It's a process, one that requires patience and grace with yourself. It's about understanding that it's okay to let down your guard little by little without expecting everything to fall into place all at once. It's about taking the risk to trust again, even when the scars from the past are still fresh. It's about learning to give people a chance to prove themselves worthy of your heart, even when the fear of being hurt lingers. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. Many of us have built emotional barriers to protect our hearts. But in order to find the deep, authentic relationships we long for, we must be willing to peel back those layers, to trust that the right people will respect our hearts and help us rebuild our faith and connection. Recognizing the emotional barriers you've built is not about shame or regret. It's about self-awareness. It's about giving yourself permission to heal, to be open, and to reconnect with the world around you. And as you do, you will begin to see that the walls you built were never as strong as the heart inside you. And that heart, once allowed to shine, will attract the real friendships and love you've been seeking all along. One of the most powerful shifts you can make in your journey toward deeper, more meaningful connections is to take full responsibility for your role in the relationships you cultivate. It's easy to point fingers, to look at others and blame them for misunderstandings, for miscommunications, or even for the breakdown of the relationship itself. Taking responsibility in relationships means acknowledging that we have the power to shape the dynamic, to contribute to both the good and the bad. It's not about taking blame or guilt for every problem that arises. Rather, it's about recognizing that we have control over how we show up, how we communicate, and how we respond to others. When we shift from a mindset of blame to one of personal responsibility, we begin to empower ourselves and take charge of the kind of relationships we want to build. Let's start by recognizing that all of us bring something into a relationship, whether it's baggage from the past, our expectations, our fears, or our desires. These things shape the way we interact with others and how we respond to situations. When we are unaware of these influences, we might act out of past wounds or unconscious biases that have nothing to do with the other person, yet everything to do with how we view ourselves in the world. Taking responsibility for our role in relationships means becoming aware of how our past influences our present behavior. For example, if you find yourself quick to distrust others, ask yourself, why do I feel this way? What past experiences have led me to believe that others will disappoint me or betray me? It's only when you acknowledge these personal beliefs that you can begin to transform them, and in doing so, shift the way you engage with others. Responsibility also means being accountable for how we treat others. Sometimes we may act in ways that are hurtful or dismissive, either out of fear or from a place of unresolved pain. Perhaps we withhold affection because we are scared of vulnerability, or maybe we become defensive when someone tries to get close, fearing that our flaws will be exposed. These reactions may not always be intentional, but they can still cause harm. Taking responsibility in these moments means owning up to our actions, even when they stem from fear or insecurity, and apologizing when we have hurt someone else. It's about acknowledging that we are not perfect and that we don't always get it right, but we are committed to doing better. One of the most profound ways we can take responsibility in relationships is by learning to communicate effectively. So often we assume that others know what we need or understand how we feel. But the truth is, communication is a skill that requires intentionality. We must be willing to speak our truth, to express our needs clearly, and to listen actively when others share their feelings. This kind of open, honest communication is the foundation for trust and understanding in any relationship. Taking responsibility also means taking ownership of our emotional reactions. It's easy to blame others for making us feel a certain way. You made me angry, or you hurt my feelings, but the reality is that no one can make us feel anything without our consent. Our emotions are a reflection of our own inner world and beliefs. When we feel hurt or upset, it's important to pause and ask ourselves, why am I reacting this way? What triggered this response? What do I need in this moment? By understanding the root of our emotions, we can respond more consciously and not let our reactions dictate the course of the relationship. At the core of taking responsibility in relationships is understanding the importance of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are the guidelines we set to protect our emotional, mental, and physical well-being. When we fail to establish healthy boundaries, we allow others to overstep, which can lead to resentment, burnout, and emotional depletion. Taking responsibility means knowing where your boundaries lie and communicating them clearly to others. It means honoring yourself enough to protect your space and your peace, even if it's uncomfortable or difficult. Another key aspect of taking responsibility is owning our intentions. Are we showing up for the people in our lives with love, respect, and authenticity? Are we being present and engaged, or are we distracted by our own concerns, fears, or insecurities? When we show up with intention, we bring our full selves into the relationship, giving the other person the gift of our undivided attention and care. And when we fail to do so, it's important to acknowledge that and make the choice to do better. Taking responsibility for our role in relationships is also about being proactive in how we nurture and maintain them. Relationships take effort. They require ongoing care, communication, and commitment. It's easy to take people for granted once they're in our lives, to assume that they will always be there, but true connection requires that we show up every day. We must make the effort to check in, to support, and to invest in the relationship even when life gets busy or challenging. When we are proactive, we are creating an environment where love, respect, and understanding can flourish. It's also essential to recognize that taking responsibility in relationships doesn't mean taking on the weight of everything. There's a difference between being responsible and being a martyr. We don't have to carry the emotional burdens of others, and we don't have to fix everything that's broken. But we do have the responsibility to communicate openly, to express our needs, and to take ownership of the ways in which we contribute to the relationship dynamic. Taking responsibility for our role in relationships is an act of empowerment. It means we are no longer passive observers of our lives, but active participants. It means that we are taking control of the quality of our connections by being aware of how we show up, how we communicate, and how we respond. When we take responsibility, we create relationships that are authentic, fulfilling, and based on mutual respect. We take ownership of the energy we bring into the room, and we choose to contribute to an atmosphere of love, honesty, and trust. Ultimately, taking responsibility is about self-awareness and growth. It's about recognizing that we are not perfect, but we are willing to learn, to improve, and to show up with intention. It's about moving beyond the default of blame and stepping into a space of empowerment, where we can take action to create the kind of relationships we desire. And in doing so, we pave the way for deeper, more fulfilling connections where love can thrive and where our hearts can find peace. Self-compassion is one of the most transformative practices you can incorporate into your life, especially when it comes to relationships, whether with yourself or with others. It's the act of being gentle with yourself, of offering yourself the same understanding and kindness that you would offer to a close friend who is struggling. Self-compassion involves recognizing that you are human, that you are not perfect, and that making mistakes is a natural part of the human experience. But what's crucial here is the way in which you treat yourself when you do fall short or experience failure. Too often, we are our own harshest critics. When we make mistakes, we tend to beat ourselves up, judge ourselves, or fall into the trap of negative self-talk. We may tell ourselves that we aren't good enough, that we don't deserve love or happiness, or that we are somehow inadequate because of the mistakes we've made or the imperfections we see in ourselves. But this internal dialogue, rooted in shame and self-criticism, does nothing but perpetuate feelings of inadequacy and emotional pain. It locks us in a cycle of negativity, and over time, it can erode our self-worth. Self-compassion, on the other hand, is about embracing yourself with warmth and understanding, especially in the moments when you feel the weakest or most vulnerable. It means treating yourself with the same kindness and support that you would extend to someone you love deeply. Instead of criticizing yourself for your shortcomings or your perceived flaws, you choose to meet them with acceptance and empathy. You recognize that mistakes are not a reflection of your worth, but simply a part of the process of growth and learning. One of the foundational components of self-compassion is mindfulness. It's about being present with your emotions and experiences without judgment or resistance. When you experience pain, disappointment, or frustration, instead of pushing those feelings away or ignoring them, you allow yourself to fully experience them. You acknowledge the feelings as valid, as part of your human experience, and you don't try to suppress them. By being mindful of your emotions, you create space for healing and growth rather than staying stuck in self-criticism or avoidance. This mindfulness allows you to step back from your emotions and observe them with curiosity rather than judgment. Another vital aspect of self-compassion is the recognition that you are not alone in your struggles. When we face difficult times, it's easy to feel isolated, as if we are the only ones who have ever experienced such pain or disappointment. But the reality is that everyone, without exception, goes through difficult moments in life. Everyone has moments of self-doubt, insecurity, and failure. Understanding this helps to break down the barrier of isolation and allows you to extend compassion to yourself. You are not alone in your struggles. And it's important to remember that hardship is a shared experience among us all. A crucial step in cultivating self-compassion is shifting the way we speak to ourselves. If you find yourself engaging in negative self-talk, constantly berating yourself for your